Hi. My name is Marcus, and I'm here on behalf of Fracture Sounds to show you their latest blueprint instrument, Textural Cello. And if you happen to be new around here, Blueprint is a series of free virtual instruments compatible with the Kontakt Player that are curated from Fracture Sounds' experiments and passion projects. And in the case of Textural Cello, this is the much anticipated follow-up to Blueprint number 5, which was Textural Violin. And that blueprint was the R&D for the much-loved Trails library by Alexander Parsons and the team. In this video, I'm going to show you through the controls for this blueprint and then a piece of music that I've written which demonstrates how it sounds in context. Let's begin. So to begin with, we have 4 articulations to choose from, much like in Textural Violin, the first of which is free tremolo. Stunning, and then I'm going to switch between this and the next articulation using the key switches found at the bottom of the keyboard, which makes it very easy to switch between different playing techniques. The next of which is col legno. Our third articulation is spikes. And finally, bends. If you want to adjust the parameters of these articulations, each articulation individually has a set of cogwheels which if you click on, you can adjust the volume, pan, attack and release for each, which can be quite useful if you're doing a lot of key switching and you want to vary the sound up a little bit, say pan the col legno over to the right. Now to go through the controls found at the top of the interface here. The first one is called Dynamics, and this controls the loudness and softness of the instrument using CC1, which is your mod wheel, and you've seen me using this so far. The next is called Scatter, and this introduces some random panning to the samples individually so that you'll find that the cello is basically coming from different directions, which can be quite a fun control. And I think this will actually be shown off really nicely with col legno. And this goes really nicely with the delay and reverb controls, both of which have additional parameters that you can change by clicking the cogwheels found next to them. In the case of delay, you can change the type to tape, for example, and you can have it synced to the beat, or if you'd prefer, you can have it free tempo, and you can make something quite kind of lengthy and ambient by switching the feedback up. You can hear it moving left to right there thanks to this ping pong bat, which is moving it left and right in turn basically. I'm going to set this back to default, bring it back down a bit. And now for our reverb controls, we have several different types to choose from. We've got Hall, we've got Convolution, which has its own bunch of types within it, all sorts to choose from. But my personal favourite, as many viewers of this channel will know by now, is Shimmer, which is stunning for ambient music. You truly get lost within it. Let me set it back to Hall though, because that's not very helpful for the demo. Finally, a staple of Fracture Sounds' instruments, the atmosphere layers, found here on the right, along with this handy solo button if you'd like just an Atmos track on its own, which I'm going to do now and turn that up so you can hear how this Atmos sounds without delay or reverb or anything like that. Lastly, if I now go over to the left here and to these big cogwheels, we can go to the settings page where we have two settings that we can adjust. First is the tightness, which, as the name implies, cuts into the start of the samples a little bit to make playability a little bit easier. And then the second is dynamic range, and this adjusts the sensitivity of the instrument to your playing in terms of dynamics. And this goes for both the mod wheel and the velocity in the case of the Col Legno samples. If I bring this all the way down, the difference between playing loud and playing soft will be basically indistinguishable. And then if I bring this all the way up, the difference between loud playing and soft playing will be quite extreme. If you want to just play something in and not have to quantize velocity, if you're doing something that's more synth-based perhaps, this is quite a useful way of skipping a step. So I'm going to reset this, and now I'm going to show you through the piece of music that I've written, which shows Textural Cello in context. Let's give it a listen. I'm not gonna lie, this is one of my favourite Blueprint demo tracks I've ever done, and I think a lot of the reason for that is that this instrument kind of inspired me to write in ways that I wasn't really expecting, due to the fact that it's laid out and presented in a way that maybe provides inspiration that you're not necessarily expecting. And what I mean by that is that I wouldn't normally reach for things like Col Legno, and I wouldn't normally put delay on a cello straight away. It's not really something I would reach for, but by having these things on screen and kind of having to play around with them for the sake of this being a demo track, I found myself really enjoying it, and it ended up leading to this riff, which is kind of almost the center part of the piece, which really brought the whole sort of mood up and the speed of the piece up, which I've really enjoyed. You can hear the delay that's turned on there. I've turned it right up, but I have made sure to turn the feedback right down so it doesn't get too mushy. But yeah, that isn't something that I would probably naturally do as a composer, so I really have enjoyed the fact that this Blueprint has encouraged me to explore new ground. For the most part, this is all very simple stuff. We've got a drone tone that goes throughout most of the piece in our first instance of Textural Cello, and this is left pretty standard in terms of controls and reverb and all that kind of thing. Wherever possible, I've made sure that the instruments in this demo have the hall reverb selected so that they all feel like they're in the same space. And the final thing to mention is that, along with a couple of the other instances, I have adjusted the attack and release, especially for the last chord of the piece when it cuts off quite abruptly. I wanted to emphasize that and not have the release kind of fading out, so helps make that more succinct. So that's our first instance of Textural Cello. Our next is Bends, which comes in towards the end there, and again just this lovely kind of slight feeling of tension that this gives. What I really love about this sound is that it can be both a positive and a negative sound. It could be in a horror movie, but it also works really nicely with the chords that we heard in String Trio. And I just love that kind of combination of kind of beautiful chords and tense bending of the notes between tones, basically. It's not quite happy, it's not quite sad, it's sort of somewhere in between, and I quite like that. Fourth instance of Textural Cello is our spike layer, and this comes in at strategic points to add a bit of emphasis. It is quite an intense articulation, so it's worth kind of saving it, I think, for specific moments. Here it is at the end. And you can see me using the mod wheel here to control the intensity of it. For instance, here when we hear the bass guitar and stuff come in, I have it turned up a bit louder so that it kind of emphasizes that transition. This fifth instance here is quite a fun one. So we've got the col legno again. If I go to the settings page, you can see that I have the tightness turned right up, and this is to make sure that the samples don't come in too late. And the reason I mention this is because if we look up at the top right in our Kontakt window here, I've pitch shifted this instance of the col legno cello down by 12 semitones or an octave, which has given us this really punchy kind of almost double bass like sound. You can hear that's got some really good sub bass to it, and so I've used this as a kind of bass line throughout, and honestly it's quite simple, and I've managed to loop it as well, and as well as at the very end of the piece using it as an almost like a little kind of like a little drum roll almost. Bit of low end kind of punch to finish the piece off with, and as well as that clicking sound from the col legno. That and the original col legno playing together in harmony, it's just so nice. And you can hear the delay really working there. It's got like a nice kind of like cut off to it basically. I think that's the damping turned all the way up. I think I did that, I can't remember exactly, but yeah, tape delay with the damping turned up gives you that kind of filtered sound, which I really like, and means that we're not getting too much mushiness in the low end, because obviously you don't really want to be delaying bass frequencies, you want those to be nice and clean. Moving on to our other Blueprint instruments. Oh yeah, did I mention this piece was made entirely with Blueprint instruments? Well, it is. This piece is made entirely with Blueprint instruments, all of which are free to download. Our next Blueprint is Textural Violin, and of course this had to be in the piece. It's a classic, number 5, over a year ago now I think I did the walkthrough for this one, how the time flies, and of course the perfect companion to Textural Cello. Now I have got free tremolo here, which comes in towards the end and builds up the texture. Here's how that sounds. You can hear the Atmos is cranked all the way up, but I don't think that's quite as important as the col legno track for this instrument, which plays alongside the cello and just really adds that kind of syncopated sound to it. It's playing on the offbeat, which almost simulates the snare in a drum kit, if you like. Again, looking at the delay here, 1/8 dot, which obviously gives it that kind of... So you can hear the delay on the cello is going dun 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 dun, and then the delay on the textural violin is going dun 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 dun, which means that they're playing together quite nicely in my opinion. Yeah, that's a lovely texture to have in there as well, and means that the two together make quite a nice little ensemble. If only there was a viola, maybe in the future. Who knows? Next up, String Trio. And this, of course, is a slightly different sound, different cast of characters, so to speak, with a different set of controls and articulations. You can see here that we've got the mic mix moved a little bit closer, and I've got it on sustains here for the end of the piece, when I just felt the yearning to put in some emotional chords and have the mood of the piece change to really demonstrate the dexterity, I guess, of Textural Cello, and the fact that it didn't have to just be a cheerful piece from start to finish. Stereo width turned up as well a little bit. I always do like that kind of slightly all-encompassing sound, and here's how this sounds in isolation. Obviously you can hear that maybe like there's a little bit of overlap going on. Of course, this isn't a legato instrument, but you can get kind of close, and you can see how I've done this. I've overlapped the notes so that we're not having one note end and another coming in abruptly. It's like there's a sort of transition period where one is still sort of playing. And yes, this can be a little bit dangerous in like the lower register, again talking about that mushy bass, but I think it's worth it, the trade-off in how kind of much more realistic it makes it sound basically. And the other thing to mention is you can see synced right up to the bars here, no overlapping forwards but just overlapping backwards, and the reason is for each instrument in this piece I go to Logic's track delay to compensate for the latency found by having the tightness turned all the way down. You've got the tightness turned all the way down and the samples take quite a long time to come in. You can compensate for this with the pre-delay and it means it'll be nice and in time with the metronome. And again, this goes for all the tracks. If you look on the left here, we've got different amounts depending on which instrument it is, basically. Our next instance of string trio, however, is this lovely little light staccato part, which is played just by the violins, as we were, I think, at this point in the piece getting quite thick towards the sort of middle, lower end of the keyboard, and I wanted something a bit higher up. And this is what this is playing halfway through the piece. This part at the end here I played in just completely free tempo, no click or anything, and it was more to emphasize the sound of the notes coming through on the spike track for the textural cello. You can see here we've got this B flat, C, D and F, and it's the same for the staccatos but just an octave up, and I just really loved how it almost sounded like the cello doing harmonics. It's really kind of a lovely play of textures there, and the free tempo nature of it as well really makes it feel quite just full of life, very kind of organic in my opinion. Moving on now to our percussion section. Our percussion section, which consists of one track, which is toy piano, once again doing some little tinkly things in the background. I did this in the last blueprint and I'll probably end up doing it in pretty much every blueprint demo I ever do because I just enjoy the sound of it so much. And for those who don't already own Toy Piano, as I say, it's well worth downloading because you can turn down things like the broken tuning and the key clicks to make something that's more like a chime or a percussive instrument, with the atmosphere turned up and, under the settings, this extended range button which turns it from being just 2 octaves big to much higher and allows you to play up here, which obviously makes it much more useful. Moving on, our woodwind section with the fantastic Blueprint number 17 woodwind ensemble. This time playing staccatos throughout, and I've strategically kind of written this in a way where we're making sure that we've got kind of clarinet, oboe playing here, and then our bassoon line is nice and distinct down at the bottom, slightly louder, so we can really get that distinction between the instruments, despite it being a combined patch. And here's how those sound together. Yeah. Need I say more, really? I think the microphone mix, I might have again brought it a little bit closer mic'd. That stereo width is looking a little bit higher than default. Aside from that, it's left pretty much on the default. And yeah, sounds absolutely terrific. Finally, our little electronic section, we have Blueprint Electric Keys, the OG Blueprint number 1. Here's how that sounds. Key press turned up all the way, but key release turned all the way down. Interesting. Maybe I'll bring that in and see how much of a difference that makes. Ah, very clever. See, I brought the key release all the way down because the key release has got quite a lot of sub-frequencies in it, which you can just about hear. A bit like how we talked about the clarity filter in the piano updates video. This basically brought down those low-end frequencies, which we don't need for this particular riff. Stereo spread turned all the way up, and again, the sample start turned all the way down so that we get the most realistic sounding sample possible. Last but not least, Fracture Sound's bass guitar with my favourite settings. Personally speaking, I like a more electronic sound from this, so compression and drive is turned all the way up, and our tone is made a little bit brighter. Here's how this sounds on its own. Very, very convincing. And that, I believe, is my demo track for Textural Cello. Another fantastic addition to the Fracture Sounds blueprint lineup, one that pairs especially nicely with textural violin in particular, and one that I can see myself using for years to come. And hopefully you can too, and if that's the case, feel free to head over to the Fracture Sounds website to download this instrument for free, linked in the description. Otherwise, consider leaving a like and a comment, subscribing to the Fracture Sounds YouTube channel for more amazing free instruments in the future, and I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.